And welcome back to another recap. So first of all, let's go through the numbers. So there should be the comparison on the screen again. There wasn't any huge differences here. Like most of the nations were just expanding their navy a little bit, and you can see that both the French and British expanded their fleet by about 90,000 tons. Not bad. And then the Dutch increased by 80,000, Ottomans by 70,000, Mughals expanded by 70,000. Spain expanded by 40,000, Portugal by 80,000, Paris expanded by 13,000, more or less. So there was a fair bit of expansion on the fleet side from most nations, and there wasn't any huge battles. If we have a look at the map here, so the British tried to survey the French holdings in Bay of Biscay, but they were driven away. And they tried that again in Gulf of St. Lawrence for Quebec, and in Quebec they actually managed to get a glimpse on the French fleet there, and got fairly accurate numbers on what is there, and judging from how many ships were trying to pursue the brig that was doing the scouting, a lot of the ships seem to be still under repairs, which is not surprising after the beating that they took in the American East Coast from the British and the Dutch. Although the British fleet was, of course, as we know, defeated, and the Dutch did take a fair bit of damage on their side as well. But most nations that were participating in those large battles were then focusing a lot this year on repairing. Now the Dutch did do a raid of Bruges in North Sea, which is of course a Spanish holding, and the Portuguese did a raid on Buenos Aires in coastal Argentina. And both were rather successful raids, although the Spanish didn't lose all that much, mainly the coastal fortifications, but that does leave them open for invasions at a later point. But that was, for the most part, the battles of this year. Other than the Island of Death in Caribbean, if you want to know a bit more what that is, you need to check either the British or the French episode, but needless to say, both sides' civilians wanted to set up a mining colony in the same island. The French were already there, but the British then did altogether 3 colonies there and then managed to win the French. And then the French are now trying to retake it by another civilian mining colony. So there's going to be a huge amount of mining complexes on that island. Whoever manages to keep it for long enough time will take a lot of minerals from it. Now the British are of course sending in more troops there. The ships were already en route before the previous colony was set there by the British, so yeah, it's been a while and there's been a lot of fighting, but every time one side wins, usually the defender wins the first one, then the second one is won by the attackers and so forth. It just goes back and forth, but whoever can get more troops there will probably win the battle and should be able to defend it relatively easily once they get some proper troops there. And now, of course, pretty much all the nations were focusing a lot on repairing, rebuilding, and research this year. So a lot less in battle in terms of action, but there were a lot of interesting advancements. For example, the Dutch have now gotten the 3rd generation sails, so to speak. They haven't gotten all of the designs yet, but they have gotten some of them, and that will give them a nice edge on enemy fleets in terms of speed. Of course, upgrading all the ships with those new masts will take a while. It will certainly take a while, but they do have a pretty high capacity on their shipyards, so they should be able to do it. Most nations have managed to fix their economies by now. There's still the Spanish, the French and the Pirates that have a little bit problem with their economy, but even those are improving it slowly but surely. So that should be fixed probably next year. And a lot of nations did get civilian mining colonies, or at least some of the nations got some more civilian mining colonies. Nothing drastic this year, but a little bit expansions here and there and so forth. There wasn't any huge naval movements either. The French did get some reinforcements from the other areas back to Europe, which means that they'll be able to defend Europe probably very strongly. And then most of the nations were fairly passive in right now. And it remains to see how the war evolves right now, but everyone is trying to get the next set of technology to get an upper hand on their enemies right now. They're prioritizing that instead of attacking the enemy with the old ships. Because of course building a new ship generally is more expensive than upgrading an old one. So it will be faster to upgrade those than build new ones. There were also some initial peace talks before and during the year, but nothing really came out of that. So far it would appear that the war will continue, but we will see how that evolves, especially if there's going to be another decisive battle. Nothing as far as we know has been decided yet on terms of that, but it is very likely that the war will end once one side surrenders, and neither side is willing to surrender yet. But all in all, this was a bit of a shorter episode. There wasn't all that much action this time. There was a lot of research and such. If you want to know what sort of research was done on each nation, then you might want to take a look at the nation-specific episode, and also how they're moving the navies and so forth. Especially if you want to see what happened at the scouting of Quebec, you definitely want to see either the British or the French episode of that, or both. They'll get a bit better idea of what's going on. And now we're back in this part, so we'll probably be keeping this one rather short as well. There wasn't a huge amount of action this year. There was a little bit, but after what was last year, it was actually pretty nice to have a bit of a calmer year this year. I mean, we didn't have nearly as much footage to go through for editing this, so that's very good, or rather very nice, so we can get the episodes up a little bit more frequently, and we'll see. There's probably going to be bigger battles soon enough, if not next year, then the year after that again. And those are of course going to delay the episodes probably a fair bit. I'm not going to commit into another schedule yet because it's very hard to know how much something is going to take time right now. But if I'm lucky, I can keep up the current speed at least to some degree, and that will allow me to get at least 1 or 2 years per month out. Maybe more. We'll see. Probably not more actually, but if I could keep 2 years per month, that would be very useful. Keep up the pacing. Not too hard for me to keep up, but at the same time, not too slow that everyone loses interest in the series. And I'd actually like to hear your opinions of the series so far. On what do you like? What would you like me to cover on these recaps a bit more? Like, I'm trying to give a general idea of what's going on, but there's sometimes I could do a bit more, maybe a bit less if there's a lot of action that I need to go through. But especially a bit calmer years like this, especially on the recaps, I'd like your input on what you'd like to see. Of course, I'm not forcing anyone to comment or anything like that, but if you feel like helping me out a little bit, then please do consider that. But all in all, there's not a huge amount of things to reflect for this year. I mean, other than the fact that sometimes I'm struggling to keep up with the Crown productions a little bit because there's so much going on. So I usually just, after a month or so, set up the new productions everywhere and so forth, just to keep the game going a little bit faster, so to speak. And of course, if everyone's producing everything constantly, then some of them might have some monetary problems down the line, rather soon actually. But anyway, that's probably about it for this episode, so thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye bye.